Yeah, I see one. The first time going up. Yeah.
So, good evening, respected Ambassador and our External Affairs Minister. I wanted to ask a follow-up question since our last meeting in Belgium and also update you with the progress that we talked about initiating Indian Space Conference, and I'm happy to let you know that many of our Luxembourg delegates and organizations here have shown a great support from our Consular General to IBCL to many companies, and I have been also talking to CII in India and Synapse Space and other such companies who have shown interest to participate in this conference. The only support which we would need from you is that to obviously officially endorse it, and then if possible, is there any way to provide travel grants for the Indian delegates to come here? I'm hoping maybe like €1,000 per person. So if 20-30 people are coming, 20k to 30k euros is something I feel which can be arranged. And also a point of contact from your side, with whom we can follow up later on. Yes.
So the first thing you do is to hit me for money.
For official endorsement, first thing, and we would love to invite you as a chief guest as well. So yes.
No, but very seriously, I mean, first of all, it is today a domain where really a lot of exciting things are happening. It's not the only domain, but and it's a domain which is very relevant to Luxembourg as well. I mean, the capability that they have built up is really very impressive. My practical suggestion to you is, if you find a sort of a partner organization. Today, when you look at any particular subject, you will find willing players on the other side. You'll be surprised sometimes at how much they themselves are willing to do. Certainly, we would be very supportive of promoting it, and because every form of cooperation helps to build a relationship. But I would urge you to explore it very seriously before you start to think that I'm going to be the guy selling out.
Good evening, Ambassador and Honorable Minister. My question was, since you spoke about India's digital infrastructure being world class now, especially with the proven success of UPI and those things, what steps is being taken in order to digitize and involve the NRIs even democratically, so that we can have maybe digital voting system, and we can cut the cost of traveling to India when elections do happen in India. So, yeah.
First of all, on the digital public infrastructure, digital governance, I'm actually I'm fairly careful what I communicate, and what I have been trying to communicate is we have used the digital medium perhaps far more than many other societies and governments to actually deliver services and to get the society really to accept it as a way of, as part of their daily life. And that's important because when we say okay, the age of artificial AI is coming, yes, it is coming. Most of what you would read in a newspaper or see in the news would be, okay, who's moving ahead in the compute race, what are the big sort of spikes of energy which are going to happen in different parts of the world to support AI, to support data centers, etc. I think the part which often doesn't get discussed will be how actually people, societies, organizations, governments actually adopt it, how they deploy it. Because sometimes there would be countries which may be more developed, they may be richer in some ways, but they may also be very conservative in their habits. One doesn't automatically follow from the other. In that respect, I mean, when it comes to AI, and for those of you who have an interest in anything digital, I would really urge you to follow that AI summit when it happens. You know, when a year ago, Prime Minister Modi was in France for the previous AI summit, and he made, I mean, what for us in India is a very obvious point, which is, you know, AI will have very strong cultural biases. So until there is a far more effective capture of the full diversity of data, you know, there will always be shortcomings in what AI capabilities are able to offer. So it's an interesting, you know, at one level it's an interesting cultural debate, or I would say almost like a global equity debate, but it's also one of the model of society that, you know, the US, for example, very strongly pushes the corporate side of it, that, you know, creativity is important, there should not be impediments to it, whereas you have a far more state-owned or state-influenced model coming out of China. In India and in Europe, in different ways, ours is very much more taking into account what public needs it would serve, what are the rights of the citizen, you know, what are the concerns about privacy. These will all be issues. On the latter part of your question, which is, you know, how can we really use it to support, in a sense, an extension of the voting system beyond our boundaries? I don't think the challenge there is the medium. I think the issue there is, first, we need a kind of a consensus or a policy decision, whether actually voting would be extended beyond the boundaries of India, and in which case, who then is eligible? Because, you know, often people leave the shores of India. Now, whether they retain their nationality or don't, whether they declare it or don't, whether, you know, others claim to be Indians or not. I mean, it's far more complex than purely finding a technical fix for a particular right. We've had this debate a generation ago, at the beginning of this century, tail end of the last one. At that time, the feeling was that the OCI was a reasonable compromise. It's still an issue which is being discussed. Since in the last 20 years, 25 years, the number of Indians who've gone abroad has increased. In many cases, in fact, the nature, you know, the character of the diaspora has also changed. That there was a time when the tendency of people going abroad was to transition into a nationality of their domicile. That may or may not be the case anymore, because actually, if you look at certain professions which take account for a lot of this mobility, people often go today increasingly for short-time work. I mean, there will be a whole set of industries, you know, where the people involved in it envisage it as not as a lifetime commitment, but as something perhaps for a certain number of years, who are therefore more likely to maintain their citizenship. So it's it continues to be a debate. I can't tell you yes, digital makes it easier, because at the heart of the issue is we ourselves have to come to first a conclusion, a consensus within the country that we will allow voting to take place outside the country.
Yes, please.
Dr. Jaishankar, my name is Ritesh. It's the question more on the free trade agreement which you referred to. My family is one of the small but very niche agricultural commodity exporter, including rice, spices to EU and North Africa. One of the things we face difficulty is high tariffs, lots of paperwork when products come from India. Is part of that deal aiming towards reducing this, tariffs, make it more easier for commodity exporters from India to
uh, the short answer is yes. That is what an FTA is supposed to be about. But tariffs is only one part of the issue. As you probably know, if your family has been in the business, often we get into very complicated issues of standards. Particularly you mentioned rice. There have been some debates in regard to residues and so on. Sometimes the paperwork involved, the number of things you have to do to get it, appear very, very cumbersome. It's like, and people, not without reason, call it a non-tariff barrier. So sometimes tariff is a barrier, but these rules and regulations are another wall which you have to overcome. So when you look at free trade agreements, if you read about it in a newspaper, it looks like, okay, you and I sit down, we put things on the table, we sort it out. How difficult is it? Why are you people taking such a long time? That often is a kind of sense you get. And the reason you do that is precisely because of all these complexities, that we have to go through the details, we have to look at products which we export, then go through the experience, okay, what has been the experience of the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, specifically what have been the impediments to get market access, because often the tariff rate may be low, but if there are standards which block you, or if just as you say the sheer paperwork defeats you, then the tariffs are not, fixing the tariff doesn't give you the answer. So it is something which is very much on our mind. What I can say to you is, as an economy, as a country today, we have become far, far more committed to pushing our products out in the world. In fact, for all the tariff volatility of this year, actually our exports have done quite well, much better than people expected. In fact, in the last quarter, even the economy has done very much better than the prognosis. So there is that push. I think we are getting more competitive also, because when we say in India that our infrastructure is better, eventually it translates into competitiveness. Your cost as an exporter will be that much less if the roads are better, the railways are better, the time in the port is better, the ship handling is that much smoother. So all these become factors. So we are trying to make our companies, our exporters much more competitive, and I think it's paying off. If you look also at the world in the last few years, we've done a number of free trade agreements. Just last month, we signed one with Oman. We finalized one with New Zealand. Now, some of them may not be that big, but believe me, every bit adds something. Some set of exporters get new opportunities with every new trade agreement, and there is a great deal of confidence in the country today that we are capable of going out into the world. If we can negotiate good market access opportunities, I think our business is ready to really push that button.
I think the gentleman out here in front. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jaishankar, for making the time to speak to the community. Really appreciate it. The question was around the events in Venezuela. Do you have any observations, both from an official point of view, but also your personal observations, on what precedent this sets or what your thoughts are?
I don't particularly in public have a distinction between my official and personal. Anything I say is the same. But I think we put out a statement yesterday. So I would urge you to look at it. And obviously, what happened, essentially, if I can sum up the statement, the long and short of the statement was that yes, we are concerned at the developments, but we would really urge all the parties involved to now sit down and come to a position which is in the interest of the well-being and the safety of the people of Venezuela. Because at the end of the day, that is our concern. That we would want Venezuela as a country with whom over many years we've had very good relations. So we would like the people to come out well from whatever is the direction of events.
Hello, sir. First of all, big welcome to Luxembourg. I'm a big fan of yours and Mr. Modi and the team and the fantastic work that you're doing. I'm hugely admirative of the fact of the way in which you have maintained the strategic autonomy of India, particularly during the past years' developments. And my question was a little bit in continuation of what Deepak here was asking. With the recent developments, the order is changing, the way people are thinking and behaving, and the rule of might is prevailing. And particularly India, we have troubled neighbors on all our sides. So this might change the way they act and behave. How do you plan to address this going forward?
That's a very big question. It's a very big question. I'll tell you why. Partly, you are now saying, okay, the state of the world itself is different. But then you're also saying, okay, now take the state of the world and bring it to the neighborhood, and how does it impact on it? And if you look at the neighborhood, we have a number of neighbors, and actually each one of them is very different from the others. So I would invert I would start really from the neighborhood. And if you look at the neighborhood, and I'm looking at my own activities there, we had recently a very big natural disaster in our neighborhood in Sri Lanka. A cyclone which was almost unprecedented in the damage that it did to Sri Lanka. On the very day that the cyclone started early in the morning, by that afternoon, our forces were there, which it also happened we had 2 ships in Colombo at that time. But apart from those ships, by that day our forces were there. We were deeply involved in the search and rescue operations as it intensified in providing relief to people, and then within literally a few days, I was sent by Prime Minister Modi to offer them a kind of a rebuilding recovery package of a very substantial size. Now, I'm starting there because whether it was what happened in Sri Lanka or what happened a few months earlier in Myanmar, there was a very bad earthquake. And because of the state of affairs in Myanmar, actually it's very sad. Very few countries came forward to help. We were one of them, and we had actually a military hospital set up literally in a matter of days, and our search and rescue teams went out there, and what external assistance came, a very large part of it came from India. If I were to switch you to a different direction, unfortunately an earthquake happened in Afghanistan as well. And even in Afghanistan, we were literally the first country, though the logistics to Afghanistan were very complicated, but we were the first country to respond. They had 2 earthquakes, one closer to the Pakistan border, the other more to the north. On both occasions we were out there. Now I'm citing this to you as an example that if you look at the neighborhood today, unfortunately in the world, it can be conflict, it can be natural disasters, it can be climate events, it can be COVID, it can be pandemic, it can be something which you and I cannot imagine today. When big problems happen to countries and they do not have the capacity to cope with it, they naturally turn to those who do. And in our region, there is a growing belief that the country which can be relied upon in this regard is India. That belief has come out of experience of a certain number of years. I mean, it was not automatically there. It happened because when COVID pandemic took place, almost every one of our neighboring countries got their first vaccines from us. When the Ukraine war started, and many countries found that their energy supplies were cut off or became too expensive, or their wheat, because Ukraine was a very major exporter of wheat, that wheat supplies got disrupted. It was we who stepped forward, even for supply of fertilizers. So over a period of time, this belief has grown in our neighborhood. I can tell you, when I travel in the neighborhood and I look even more than the government, and the attitude of the public, that is something the public responds to. Apart from that, we ourselves feel that, look, we are the biggest country, we are the biggest economy. It's in our interest that the neighborhood works more closely with us. So we have actually today, in fact not today, for the last 10, 12 years, we have supported a very, very extensive, logistical I would say, connectivity with our neighborhood. And that kind, you all live in Europe today. Europe was not the way it was, the way it is now. I've seen a Europe 30, 40 years before, where it was not that easy traveling from one country to another. Somebody invested in the roads, somebody invested in the trains, somebody invested in making Europe so seamless as it is possible today. That is in our interest in the Indian subcontinent, in South Asia to do, and that is what we are trying to do. If you travel today, want to go to Nepal, or you want goods to go to Bangladesh, or find a way of going to Sri Lanka, most of these are actually underwritten by us in some form or the other. Now that's been the positive side of it. There is also the challenging side of it, that often, because it is our neighbor, and because there is a shared history, there are people who are insecure, there are people with political agendas who want to advance their interest or their viewpoint by, in a way, going against us, by making us the target of their politics or target of their ideology or whatever it is. We have to contend with that. That is the way life is. You don't always get positive things. If it was so easy, why would people like us be around? So I think we have to take that in our stride. There are some exceptions. For us, the relationship with Pakistan is exceptional, because if you look at the world, forget for a moment this is, our region. Show me in the world in this day and age any country which actually has pursued the kind of policies which Pakistan has against its neighbor. That for decades, you've had these training camps, not secret training camps, they're all training camps in the big cities of Pakistan, very open, where the state, the military supports terrorism, and they've tried to normalize it as though it's their right to do it. Nobody buys it anymore. Everybody knows that these are people who are supported the state. Now that is also, it's a very unpalatable reality, but it's one which, we cannot be oblivious to. We have to build our policies saying, okay, that's how that particular neighbor is going to be. So those who are far more, willing to work with us and be helpful, positive, we'll have to deal with them in that way. Those who do the kind of things which Pakistan does, we'll have to deal with it in a different way. Now, to what extent does the developments in the rest of the world affect it? It's hard to say. Look, people sitting far away will say things, sometimes with application of mind, sometimes not, sometimes the self-interest, sometimes carelessly. That will happen. But at the end of the day, I can tell you, whatever you might say, in this day and age, countries are more, I don't want to say they become more selfish, but they will do things only if it is of direct benefit to them. They'll offer you free advice. If something happens, they'll say, no, please don't do that. It worries us if there is tension. Sometimes you hear people saying, like it happened during Operation Sindhu. Now, if you ask them, saying, "Oh, really, you're worried? Why don't you look at your own region and ask yourself what are the levels of violence there? How much risks have you taken? How much worry the rest of us have about what you are doing?" But that's the nature of the world. People, what they say is not what they do, and we have to accept it in that spirit as well.
I saw a gentleman right behind the blue shirt. Let's give the mic to him.
Honorable Minister, welcome to Luxembourg. I'm Harsh, a student at the University of Luxembourg, and as part of the student community here, we welcome you. My question is, I'm doing my Masters in Space Technology and Business. So I would like to follow up on the MOU that was signed in 2022. I know the MOU was between LSA and ISRO. My question is, when can we see a formal agreement between DOS, Department of Space in India, and LSA here? And can we see some kind of university like transfer program, like how it has happened in Japan with Tohoku University? And that's all my question. Thank you.
Should I take 2-3 questions at a
time? Anybody else? Yeah, let me get to the middle of the room, the gentleman with the muffler.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Jaishankar. It is but natural for Europe and the world to learn from a country like India, which grows so fast in the fields that it's going fast in, like digitization or AI. I'm wondering if you have views on what India can learn from Europe, especially in areas where Europe is doing well. Because that's a question that maybe people don't ask nowadays, but I think it's important that we continue to look at learning from other countries.
Sure. Take one.
Yeah, the gentleman with the blue.
Good evening, sir. This is Vijay, and I work for Amazon here, and I saw Indian Navy before. My question is around the new Indian mindset. When US applies pressure on India, say about Russia or the other countries, what typically cooks inside you? What instincts? What inner beliefs? What kind of red lines which guide you, to take decisions, to be firm, autonomous, independent, to take care of the long-term interest of the country. The question is around what's cooking inside. What's the mindset that's happening, so that we can learn from that in our daily life. Thank you.
Okay. The first question you asked about space, look, I can't answer that very specifically because I mean, it's not like I know exactly where that MOU is and what is followed up. But I would make 2 points for my own discussions today. I'm sure you are tracking what is happening on the space side in India. And if you look today at the number of space-related startups, if you look at an organization like InSpace which has come up, there is actually, almost a revolution happening in the space sector. At the beginning of this year, today is the 6th, okay? 4 days ago, I was in IIT Madras. And as part of that visit, they actually showed me around. By the way, that itself is a very interesting thing, that if you go today to an educational institutions, they often showcase their students who have set up a business, who got patents, who've done a startup. So that, not the mind, that's also a mindset change, different from the one which you're talking about. My plea today to my, counterparts in Luxembourg is, please come to India and try to understand really what are these other changes which are taking place. That the space industry, it's very interesting. The space industry has become far bigger than what the Department of Space is, far more than what the governmental organizations are. There is so much else that is happening, and which, by the way, the Indian system is tapping into. It's not that it's happening there and the government is there. We ourselves tell people, please look at the entirety of the space domain activities in India, and probably there's a lot that you will learn. And I think that kind of exercise, they told me that they're very interested in sending a team and looking at it, and it's quite possible that your university may also be involved in it. I'm very hopeful that that would take us to the next level. On that, your question, I feel today, and I'm probably biased out here. Actually, we are far more open now to understanding what is happening in the world, trying to look at best practices and experiences, and trying to see how we can apply it to India. My own experience I can share with you. I'm just giving you one or two examples. There was some years ago, I had accompanied Prime Minister when he came to Europe, specifically to Germany. And he was very interested when he went to a particular railway station. And he saw that, the railway station was not just sort of a piece of earth where trains came and trains went. Around the railway station, there was so much other activities. There were hotels, there was commercial property, there was shopping. So it was very different from how railway stations were typically in India. And it was something which he observed. And when he came back, actually, he told us, saying, told particularly the people in the railways, saying, look, I think this was Berlin, if my memory serves me right, saying, see how they are handling the railway station. So I'm giving you the railway station as an example. Now, I had a similar experience when we went to Korea, and in fact, we were on a visit to a shipyard. In many cases, since you asked about Europe, we look today at technologies and solutions that Europe has to offer. Solutions in pollution, for example, solutions in environment. Whatever you might, different countries have a kind of a image, you can say. That sum total of their achievement eventually is like drilled into one or two concepts which stick in our minds. Like you say America, you say, Americans very competitive people, very technology centered. Whatever you might say, Europe has an extraordinary quality of life. Europe is in many ways still a standard setter in so many domains that I think there is a lot that today we can learn from Europe. I was talking about railway station. I think even if you were to look at trains, I don't know when was the last time any of you have travelled in a railway train in India. The railways have undergone a remarkable transformation, but we still see, if you're open-minded, you will have the honesty to say somebody else has something I don't have, they're still, 10, 20, 30% ahead. And you like to know what is it that they are doing better than you or what they're doing different than you, which you can observe. Certainly, I can tell you from a government perspective, that kind of thinking is very alive. We have a particular body called Niti Aayog, which replaced the Planning Commission. And they do a lot of, what other countries are doing. What are the best practices we can take. And I would say where Europe is concerned, there is a lot that, Europe can offer to India, which obviously we'll have to adapt and apply to our particular circumstances. The third question, what happens if you are subject to pressure? Look, at the end of the day, there are about 200 countries in the world. Okay, some are bigger, some are smaller, some have a longer history and a sense of nationhood which is derived from that longer history. So everybody cannot be in the same position. Everybody is not in the same position. So when there is a problem, it can even be a common problem. Different countries will react to it differently because, those who have greater exposure will be more worried. Those who have deeper strengths will be more confident. Some have said, okay, I've been through tough times before, I'll handle this one. So it's a mix of different things. But your sense of, look, you called it what is cooking inside. I put it differently. I think there is a national mood. There is a national resolve in a way today. Often people in politics or people in policy positions, they are like the front end of it, But they are actually reflecting what is the national mood. So if you say, today there is a certain position taken, that position is taken because I think that is the national resolve or the national mood. So that sense is today strong that, look, we have come up the hard way, we have dealt with various challenges. It's not the first time, people have tried to pressurize us. And we need to stand. I mean, many of you would be aware in recent days, particularly in the social media, there's a lot of debate saying, how important it was to take the nuclear decision. That the nuclear gives you a lot of security and a fundamental confidence to hold your ground. I appreciate why people say it, but I want to tell you at that time, I mean, when people took that decision, it was not an easy decision to take. There was, everybody came at you. There were all sorts of pressures, sanctions on us. So, you had both the resolve to take the decision and then the fortitude to see it through and say, okay, I'll absorb the cost. I will, if there is a pain to be felt, okay, I'll take it. Now, we have done that, gained something. There is a learning from that experience. Today we are bigger. I mean, we are today a $4 trillion economy. We are among the top $5, economies of the world. So our ability to stand our ground is also that much sort of longer. But you can also look at the flip side, which is, always think that if you were to actually cede ground, then, what are the consequences of that? That is also a factor. So I think the national mood today, the national resolve is very strong. And that is exhibited in the manner in which we respond to it.